next question that we've received is a lot of men in the church and outside of the church are struggling with pornography. We wanted to ask two parts to this question. One, what are your thoughts of why men are falling into this sin, even though they don't want to, and they're struggling against it, but they're continuously falling into it? And then the second part, do you have tips or advice for men that are struggling with this sin of how they can fight it?
This is a big subject, and definitely it will take much more than the time of the interview to be addressed. But if I answer the first part of the question first, why it is something that people experience, the repeated fall, I will just mention two things that are very common. The first one is that we rely on the thing that failed already. This is the will. So if the will failed, then you cannot just go and try to do it in the same way over and over and over. This is something that really will bring us to the same kind of results and frustration. The second thing is, in the mind of many men, they consider this as something that is not as bad as cheating on my wife. Mm-hmm. It's something that's a sin, but meanwhile it's controlled, it is myself, I'm not hurting anyone. Definitely this is not true. The third and last point about why is the repeated fall, even with a feeling inside that I hate the sin, is that sometimes we define an end that I do not want to get myself to, but the means to it I can walk the way. Meaning, to go into this kind of habit, there are like certain steps. So one of the reasons, for example, like to go into this is to be idle, having nothing to do, or that whenever I feel like I am frustrated or disappointed, the only thing I do is to run to my computer. Mm-hmm. So people sometimes say, I do not want to fall in the sin, but meanwhile I allow myself to be idle, or to talk about something with my friends that is inappropriate, or that whenever I am depressed, I quit maybe praying or getting another source of comfort, and then eventually I find myself falling into this. So this is usually the pattern. The other thing about some tips about to deal with it, I will maybe mention three. The first tip is always to hold on the hope in the transformation that can be granted to us through Christ. This is what we need, always knowing and that God is able. The church make it a point to celebrate the resurrection not only as a major feast, but for 50 days and also every Sunday. Mm-hmm. This is a reminder. We are not celebrating an incident that happened 2,000 years ago. We are celebrating this kind of power that can be granted to all of us. So number one is the hope. The second thing is the means of grace. And by name, they are means of grace because through which support and help comes from God. The idea about prayer, consistent prayers and fasting and the Bible, all of what the church keep on repeating to us, all of these are means of grace. And as much as we hold on them, as much as we can find grace, and that can it change us. And the third tip is to seek help. The fathers, they teach us that exposing the thoughts will weaken them. So this is the importance of the sacrament of confession and repentance. No matter how often I fall, I come and I bring the subject to my Father with confession. In some occasions, this help also can extend to professional counseling. I'm not saying this is something necessary for every case, but definitely it's a tool that can be used whenever things are out of control.